one of the things that's scary about meta is you sort of have to spend to learn. But then once you get there, it is it's pretty flexible in terms of ramping up and ramping down. But yeah, I mean, probably at least 5 to 10K. And I remember that being a very scary number.
Yeah, that's kind of what I set expectations with younger entrepreneurs these days. I was like, if you don't really have like 5 or 10K a month for a single channel, don't try to spin that across, TikTok, Google, and all into one.
All in one, yeah, for sure.
Honest Ecommerce is a weekly podcast where we interview direct-to-consumer brand founders and leaders to find out what it takes to start, grow, and scale an online business today. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. Today, I'm welcoming to the show Lauren Barker. She is the CEO and co-founder of Uresta, the sports bra for your bladder, where she's transforming a taboo, underserved category into a rapidly growing pillar of women's health innovation. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I'm excited. So, for those that don't know, what is Uresta? What's like the flagship product that you are bringing to market over there?
So Uresta is a solution for bladder leakage, leaks that are caused by coughing or sneezing or jumping. If you've ever seen a woman like cross her legs when she's about to sneeze, she has bladder leaks. And basically what's happening in the body is the muscles that are supporting your bladder have become like weak or damaged. It could be like pregnancy related, or just part of getting older, hormones as well. And we say we are a sports bra for your bladder because we actually help support the bladder to prevent those leaks from happening. So this is our product here, and it essentially is a vaginally inserted product that will just support your bladder from within the vagina. I know that sounds very confusing. But it will prevent the leaks from happening, but you don't have to take it out to pee. So this is kind of like I said, a sports bra, or say if you'd like sprained your ankle, you might wear like an ankle brace. Think of it the same way. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember from when we chatted a while back, little inside baseball for all the listeners. We do a pre-interview for all of these things. You mentioned that this is a very common problem that isn't talked about much.
Yeah, so it is very prevalent. Like it impacts about 1 in 3 women after the age of 30, and then as many as 1 in 2 by time of menopause. Obviously, no one wants to pee their pants. It's embarrassing, but I think it also, and I've talked to like thousands of women at this point, it's something that makes them feel old. It makes them feel like gross, right? They might worry in like a social setting or like a work setting. I hear this all the time that like, oh, like I smell like urine. Like, can my colleague, smell that I just leaked? So it's a huge confidence issue. But it's incredibly common. And I think because it's so embarrassing, women don't necessarily talk about it. So I think they often feel like very isolated.
Absolutely. Now, where did the idea, is it the chicken or the egg? Was it the problem or the solution? Like where did the concept of, maybe there's a product here, a business here, where did that kind of start?
So it is a bit of an interesting story. So I started my career in investment banking and then private equity. So I was sort of on like the investing side or buying businesses. And I just kind of by fluke met the inventor of Uresta. So he was actually a urogynecologist. So he was actually doing bladder surgery to prevent leaks. And there's a lot of limitations when it comes to surgery. And I mean, obviously it's invasive. It's not always successful. And I think he was also just finding that a lot of women were trying to find like a non-invasive solution. And so he came up with the idea. And as you can imagine, a medical product is like very expensive to go through like the initial clinical studies, regulatory approvals, and then just not really having like the right, experience or background. Like he was a full-time physician to properly market the product. He had sort of kind of invented it, gotten it through those initial like regulatory hurdles, and then was sort of, I think, just roadblocked and didn't really know where to go next, and had personally invested a fair bit of money. I got connected with him. Like I said, I was working in private equity. There's not a lot of females in private equity, and someone sort of put us in touch and had said, would you just take a look at this business and, see if maybe you could provide any like advice. Like it wasn't the right fit for, say, my firm necessarily to invest in, but it just really sparked an interest in me. I feel like at the time it was probably like 2018, 2019. And I feel like we'd seen like so much disruption in the menstrual space, for example, with like menstrual cups. But then if you looked at like the incontinence space, you were really just seeing, I think we did a survey and some research. It was about like 80% of women were using pads to manage their leaks. And it just felt really archaic. And also starting to understand that like women were like so dissatisfied with that solution. And then you also realize that this is such a common issue, like 1 in 3 women, that's a lot of women, and the pad industry is huge. It just felt right for disruption. And it just was one of those things. It was just kind of like a bug in my ear. I thought about it for about 2 years. I was helping Dr. Farrell on the side of my desk, just purely out of passion. And then finally, one day I was like, it's now or never. And I don't want to wake up in like 10 years and be like, wow, I really wish, I quit my job and I didn't want to regret not partnering with him. And so, I jumped in like 2 feet in.
Hey, everybody, just a quick reminder. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't. We're releasing interviews like this every week, so don't miss out. Now back to the interview. Absolutely. And that was one of the things that I really thought was exciting about your story, and something I don't know if we've covered on the podcast before, was you aren't the inventor of the product, but you were there from not the very start, but like pretty close to the beginning. And this is just another path in which you can take in e-commerce. I think one of my goals with this podcast, I guess, would be like to show like there's a bunch of ways to build a career, build a life, and to do what you want in this space. And you kind of pointing out here is there are certain people that have great ideas and then they don't know what to do next, right? And so if you are a person that is good at helping, with some of these skills that we'll probably get to talk about here in a minute, but like marketing, branding, wholesale, just distribution channels. Like if you're just an Amazon expert, you just got to go find someone with a cool product, right? Like there's a bunch of ways to do it.
Yeah.
So, that is my little soapbox moment for everyone. It's like, you don't have to have the next best idea, but you got to find someone that does.
Totally. And I think Dr. Farrell, he's our chief medical officer. I love him. He's a great guy, but he really struggled on how to build a business and how to properly market it and have a successful go-to-market strategy, right? And he's smart. He obviously developed a very unique product. He required that medical knowledge, but I think it was, lucky when we met. It was kind of like right time, right place. But I think to your earlier comment, like entrepreneurship can take so many different angles. I think we see a lot. And so I grew up or started my career in finance. And so it's somewhat common to buy a business instead of starting a business. And so I always like to say, we were sort of a hybrid between, a true startup from the ground versus buying an established business.
Do you know what's going on with Klaviyo? When is the last time you explored what it can do? Klaviyo has been shipping tons of new AI, data, and automation features designed to help e-commerce teams move faster, personalize better, and automate more of the work that used to take entire teams. Most brands are only using a fraction of what is already inside their Klaviyo account. Klaviyo is not just email and SMS anymore. It is your customer data platform, your lifecycle marketing engine, your analytics layer, and now your AI-assisted execution layer all in one place. That means your customer data updates in real time. Your segments stay current automatically. Your flows and campaigns all run off the same source of truth. And now AI can help predict churn risk, forecast spend, recommend next best products, generate campaign content, and optimize send timing across channels. The big unlock is speed and efficiency. There are fewer tools to manage, less dependency on engineering, less time moving data between systems, and a lower total cost of ownership across your marketing stack. And brands are seeing real results from leaning further into Klaviyo. Dollar Shave Club has reported over 30% reduction in total CRM stack costs after consolidating onto Klaviyo. Brands like Third Love have seen a 15x ROI from SMS after consolidating channels. And companies like Corksicle have grown flow revenue over 90% after bringing email and SMS together inside Klaviyo. Across our customer base, almost every single brand we work with today is using Klaviyo. That is just where serious e-commerce customer data and lifecycle infrastructures are living these days. If you're already on Klaviyo, but you feel like you're not getting everything you can out of it, or you're just running multiple tools and want to simplify without losing power, I think this is worth your time. You should head on over to klaviyo.com/honest to learn more. That's KLAVIYO.com/honest to learn more about what Klaviyo can do for you today. I could also just imagine that it was possibly hard for the good doctor to speak to women in the way that they want to be spoken to as a male.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing surgery for this, right? So he definitely was talking to women, but marketing is so different, right? And our product is very interesting in the sense of like, it's a product that women really need, but don't necessarily want, right? And there's just like so much shame and, to be honest, probably a lot of denial. So it's very different than like, a lot of other products out there that are being marketed, right?
Yeah. And marketing, surprise, surprise, has nothing to do with the medical benefits. It has to do with how it helps the selfish little things that drive human nature. So I'm sure that's something that's been fun to explore. So just to get back to the journey is right. So you're like, screw it. You jump in, like you said, both feet first. You don't want to miss this opportunity. What's going on in the business, and what were some of the first things that you started to give your full attention to?
So when I first joined full time, we were generating almost like no sales. We had a couple things. We had been through Health Canada approval to sell over the counter. So we could sell directly to consumers in Canada. In the US, we were prescription only. So in order to get Uresta, you would need to go to your doctor and get a prescription. So kind of the first thing out of the gate is we started doing a ton of customer research and competitor research. And what we realized is that a lot of women weren't actually talking to their doctor about it. So, less than 50% would actually bring it up with their doctor. I think because it's a quality of life issue, it's not necessarily like, oh my God, something's wrong with me. Like maybe I have cancer. I think a lot of women would be like, oh yeah, like I pee when I sneeze, but like so does my mom. So like I know it's okay. So yeah, we were finding a lot of women weren't going to their healthcare provider. We were also finding a lot of them were buying pads or like reusable leak-proof underwear. So we're like, okay, majority of women are already buying their products the direct-to-consumer route. And so we really felt like we needed to be DTC. We needed to cut out. And that was something like, I think initially the thought was like, go more of like the medical sales route, like educate physicians who would then tell their patients, and then it would be sort of a prescription model. But I really felt strongly that we needed to take down that barrier of the prescription in the US. And as you can imagine, like going through an FDA process to just, even though we had been FDA cleared, but just to remove that prescription requirement was incredibly expensive. We didn't have the capital to do it, and it would take a lot of time. So my first kind of gut reaction was like, all right, well, we have the ability to sell directly to women in Canada. Let's test it here. If you haven't figured it out, we are Canadian based. So we started in Canada, under this like direct to consumer strategy, and, we saw traction almost immediately. And that little bit of traction allowed us to raise the capital we needed to start the FDA process. So we knew we were going to have to raise capital. But yeah, we basically did that off of kind of building a case study in Canada. And then as we went through the FDA process, which was like almost 3 years, we continued to grow in Canada and just like learn as much as we can and build our market strategy here so that when we were ready to launch in the US, we were better equipped, obviously, but then also could again use Canada as that case study to then raise money to really, go out of the gates in the US quite as aggressively as we can, or with as much success as we could.
Hey, store owners. Do you know how profitable your last big decision was on your Shopify store? Most testing tools make it easy to measure design changes, small tweaks, headlines, layouts, button colors. But what about the decisions that really move the business? Pricing changes, shipping rates, discount strategy, even new apps and tools. Those are usually left to gut feel. Intelligems brings CRO-level clarity to decisions that live beyond the page. Brands like Ridge, Jones Road, and True Classics are using Intelligems to test pricing, offers, shipping, and more, and see exactly how each choice impacts profit. Momofuku used Intelligems to test multiple promotional offers ahead of Black Friday and identify the version that ultimately increased profit by about 28%. Mott & Bow used Intelligems to run structured pricing and offer tests that helped drive roughly a 30% increase in incremental profit. Dossier used Intelligems to run site-wide testing that resulted in about a 7.4% increase in profit per visitor across their store. They have a bunch more case studies on their website. I'm a big fan of Intelligems. We use Intelligems to test major site changes, new theme launches, and throughout ongoing CRO work. So when we are making decisions around design, pricing, offers, etc., we can be confident that those changes are actually driving more profit for our clients. So before you start changing pricing, promos, and major site experiences across your store all willy-nilly, you should probably test it first. If you're ready to decide confidently and grow profitably, head on over to intelligems.io. That's INTELLIGEMS.io and use code HONEST for 10% off your first 3 months. That's intelligems.io. Use code HONEST. Absolutely. And this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Topic. Not really. It's all right. What was that aggressive go-to-market strategy in the States? What worked in Canada that you were trying to replicate here in the States once you got that barrier of that prescription out?
Yeah.
Like once you could just start selling online?
Yeah. So a couple things. One thing to note is we did also launch during like the beginning of COVID in Canada. So I think you're somewhat limited. Like, for example, we started on Meta. I feel like there was a lot of conversations on women's health, like happening on Meta. So there was a lot of like allied healthcare professionals. A big one was like pelvic floor physiotherapists, for example, who were not working, who were honestly bored. They were at home. They were starting to post content online. So we started partnering with them to be like, hey, we want to send you a product. Like, can you do a review? Can you talk about it? So started to sort of build trust that way and spread the word that way online. And then we started with meta ads too. I think also because we were like super eager to just like get traction and like show the product works. We knew trust was going to be huge. Like we knew we needed to get reviews. We knew we needed to get testimonials. So we knew we had to get sales. So we were like, okay, let's just get sales, not at any cost, but kind of started with meta. And then once we started to see the ball, or get the ball rolling on Meta, we were able to then just start, we started entering customers who bought it, doing surveys, really understanding like, what was it, in an ad that drew them into to purchase, and just really just started to learn as much as we could so that we could just improve our messaging. And we honestly grew pretty much mostly through Meta initially in Canada. And I know it's a challenging platform for a lot of people, but I think because it is a pretty large market size, we saw a lot of success. At the same time, once things started to sort of open up, like we have a big cohort of runners. So we started doing like, if you're running a marathon, there's often like an expo before the marathon. So we would go to a marathon, we'd have a booth. So we started to do in-person events. And then, when we launched in the US, it was a lot of the same stuff. We have started to tap TV, which has also been a huge one for us as well. I think there's cool platforms like we're using Tatari. Like there's ways to test TV in a very measurable way at a much smaller scale than I think, you would think. It shocked me, but
That's amazing. I have been in business for nearly 20 years, and very few companies I have hired in that time have performed as well as Electric Eye. They have knowledgeable staff, and our project was delivered on time and on budget. Electric Eye has exceeded my expectations, and I look forward to working with them again. That is a direct quote from one of our clients at Electric Eye. Electric Eye is a Shopify Plus partner that has helped over 100 brands migrate, redesign, and optimize their stores since 2016. If you'd like to increase your conversion rate, average order value, and revenue per session, we are the true Shopify experts you've been looking for. Right now, we're offering a free diagnostic to qualified brands that reach out and mention the podcast. Visit electriceye.io today to schedule a call and send us a message. Find out why we have over 50 5-star reviews in the Shopify partner directory. Again, that's electriceye.io, electriceye.io. Just because I want to set expectations for brands when it comes to, paid ad spends and stuff. You don't have to give us the exact down to the penny, but do you remember when things started to when you were ramping things up, like what you were spending, a day or a month, or when was it a scary number that now looking back, you're like, wow, I can't believe we were even spending that little?
Oh, that's a good question. I remember early days being like, okay, do we have $5,000 this month to put into Meta? And that felt like a really scary number. I think one of the things that's scary about Meta is you sort of have to spend to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But then once you get there, it's pretty flexible in terms of ramping up and ramping down. But yeah, probably at least 5 to 10K. And I remember that being a very scary number.
Yeah, that's kind of what I set expectations with younger entrepreneurs these days. I was like, if you don't really have 5 or 10K a month for a single channel, don't try to spin that across, TikTok, Google, and all into one.
All in one, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then something I kind of just wanted to point out about you guys going after the Canadian market while trying to figure out what you could do in the US is once you had that email list and you had that pixel in Canada, kind of already, some people like to call it seasoned or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
When the US opened up, you could just make a lookalike audience with all that weird data that Meta has on everybody. It's these are the exact customers. So I'm assuming being able to branch out into that market was infinitely easier than going from 0 to 1 on Meta in the first place.
Yeah, I think it was for sure. There was a few different things we leveraged. One, we had our existing customer base. So we had a pretty good idea of the types of women who were purchasing Uresta. We had different cohorts. So we had our kind of Canadian personas. We did do a fair bit of research prior to launching in the US. So we did surveys and customer interviews as well with women who suffered from bladder leakage. And we found them to match up quite well with what we were seeing in Canada. It is interesting. I did hear from a lot of other Canadian brands who first launched in Canada and then launched in the US that would tell me the US market is very different. Your personas will be very different. An ad that works in Canada won't necessarily translate in the US. I will say that has not been the case for us.
Yeah, maybe in Montreal.
Yes, maybe. But, I think maybe a little bit right now, there's definitely probably stuff in Canada that's Canadian specific, or Canadian made product, for example, right? So that's something that is important to Canadians right now. But generally speaking, from a persona and a messaging standpoint, I think we found it to be pretty similar. And then something that was initially recommended to us was actually to split out our ad accounts. So we'd have a US account and a Canadian account on Meta. But we have really strong engagement on our ads. So we'll have women who will be I use this product, I love it. Or people will ask questions about it. And then it'll get a lot of engagement, which obviously also helps with ad performance. And so we were able to leverage some of those high engagement ads by relaunching them when we started in the US. So, and I kind of to my earlier point, trust is really important. Building social proof was critical for us. So yeah, being able to just leverage all that social proof from Canada has been like really important in our US launch.
Absolutely. Now, is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think would resonate with our audience?
I mean, I think it's just, I always think about a couple different things. I think with Uresta, I kind of touched on this, but like it's a product that I think women don't necessarily want to accept that they have to purchase. I speak with a lot of our customers. It's like if you're not like in regular contact with your customers, you should be, because you learn so much. Currently right now, I am reaching out to women who have expressed interest in filming like a video testimonial. So when I reach out to them, like we usually start the call off on like getting to know them and their purchase journey and all of that. But, I've heard this from so many women now is like, oh, I knew about Uresta, but I was on the fence for like 8 months because I didn't want to accept that, I needed this product. And so I was like, okay, this is really interesting. Like it wasn't the price that was holding them back. Like it was truly like denial and them feeling like they were old and like accepting that they had the issue. So I don't know, it's been really interesting because I think there's so many products out there where you like want to buy that product, but you don't necessarily need it. And we're like the total opposite.
Yeah.
So I think just like really leaning into like trust and education and like finding ways to like destigmatize like bladder leakage has just been really important in our marketing journey. Because I think I've had so many people along the way being like, oh, this should be like a slam dunk. And I'm like, it's not necessarily a slam dunk.
Yeah, but writing the ads kind of, like you interviewing your customer and them talking about that transformational moment, like that is just hook, line, and sinker, like easy ad copy right there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, if I'm listening to this and it potentially resonates with me, maybe I'm not there ready to accept it, but I want to get on your retargeting pixel. So what website should I visit to kind of check things out and learn more?
Yeah, it would be uresta.com. So uresta.com.
Absolutely. We'll link to that. We'll link to your Instagram as well in the show notes. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing that amazing story.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us.